Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Frozen Fortunes, the second analysis video that we've done. Now, I'm going to try and do this as much in one take as I can, because obviously it's difficult to go through and edit videos as long as this, so if I make a little mistake or two along the way, cut me some slack on that one if you can. This one might be a tiny bit shorter than the last one, purely because I'll have streamlined the process of doing the video slightly, so we're probably looking at about 45 minutes perhaps. But we do still have lots of stuff to talk about, so let's just jump straight in to this episode. Now, possession in this league, obviously we were going to struggle for it, and I don't really care. We're basically playing like Leicester City, but with less style. We don't need possession to win games, as we've proven time and time again. We've won games with like 68% possession in the other team's favour. I don't think it really makes any difference to us at this point. Penalties taken. We've actually taken 7 penalties. Marion List have loads. We've scored 5 of them, which isn't bad, I suppose. It's good that we're actually getting penalties given in our favour, too. Don't know how many we've conceded, though. That's something I do want to kind of see. Headers won. We're right up there on the old headers one, which is good. I think if we could get a couple of players up top that could win some headers for us as well, we'd really start to improve. Those are the kind of areas where I think we really do need to be getting somewhere. We're sort of mid-table. Well, we're actually 5th on headers 1 ratio. Hobro do win a lot in the air, and maybe that's why we struggled so much against them, in that one of our key areas of our game is winning those balls, and Hobro were just able to do it consistently and very, very well. So perhaps that is an area as well that could do with improving. Yellow cards, I feel like we were definitely higher up on this last year, and I feel like a full season on the other approach means that we will concede a lot less yellow cards, and hopefully next season, which means less suspensions, which could be useful for us, and hopefully based on that it could mean that we don't concede so many free kicks and whatnot. Red cards, I don't think we actually no, we did have 1 red card. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Ollie Betzer right towards the beginning of the save, but only 1 red card in a season where we concede a lot of fouls is a little bit surprising. I'll be interested to see where we stack up on the fouls, though. That will be quite interesting to see. Form, these ones, this doesn't really matter. I wish there was a way that you could filter the form over certain periods, because, you know, it only tells you what the current situation is, and that's a bit stupid, if you ask me. So we'll kind of skip that for now. Top goal scorers in the league, Vale with 78. We are the 3rd highest goal scorers in the league, though, with 57 goals. So that's certainly something to work on. If we could score a few more goals next year and concede a few less, there's a real chance of us being up there, I have to say. Cross completion. How is our cross completion only 16%? That is crazy. The only thing I can think of is that because it's taking into account the first half of the season as well, I think if we'd had a full season playing the way we are, our cross completion would be probably above 20%, which is astonishing. But the key thing is, it's second best in the league as it is, and I'm really very interested. I wonder how many crosses we've completed. Interestingly, a bit lower, but again, that could come down to the way that we played in the first half of the year. I'd be interested to see how over a full season, whether that would actually sort of play out the same way. Goals from corners. We have only scored 1 goal from a corner. That's interesting, because, I mean, I'm using a corner tactic I got at the very beginning of the save, so maybe there's a new idea. Maybe if you've got any ideas for an actual corner attacking strategy, which I hadn't thought about, then let me know in the comments what you do for corners and if it works, or put a link or something like that, because clearly that's an area where we're missing out on 3 or 4 extra goals a season that could win us sort of 3 or 4 extra points with them. Even if we just averaged for the league, we'd gain 3 more goals a season. That's an area we really can improve in. Goals from direct free kicks. So there've been 3 goals from direct free kicks in the entire season. Sort it out. That's nonsense. Goals from indirect free kicks. This did have got 9. We've got 5, so we're about average there. I think we're getting about as many as we should be from these kind of situations. This did are doing something amazing from set pieces, though, it has to be said. Pass completion, weirdly not the worst in the league. Frame heads is actually worse than ours, which is surprising. I don't expect ours to be too high, because we do play a lot of long balls, and let's face it, long balls rarely go to their man 100% of the time. We're not going to be playing tiki-taka in this save, that is for sure, but I'm quite happy playing this sort of style at the moment. It gets results, and that's what we need. Remember how much we're still punching above our weight. We were still the favourites to go down this year. We're still probably the weakest squad in the league, and yet we are coming in the top half of the table now. Soon that will change. I feel like next year we won't have the weakest squad in the league if I can sign the right players, and I think we've probably got about 80 players joining us over the summer, so there's bound to be a few good ones in there that I can sign up to new deals, plus we can maybe find some new players, and you never know. I think our reputation has gone up to national now instead of like regional, so that might mean that we might be able to sign some Danish players. Who knows? That would be amazing though if we could actually do that. Passes completed, we're on the very low side of that. Not really in any real surprises, that one. Chances created, I feel like, yeah, I was going to say, I felt like we should be very, very high on this one. And I think we'd probably be finishing even higher if we had a slightly better chance conversion. I'd be interested to see how that kind of works out. How many of these chances were turning into goals? Because Vale, you know, they had a few more chances than us, but Freymad and us both have a lot of chances, but we're not turning them into goals frequently enough. And I think next year, maybe Freymad could be a team to watch out for as well if they start picking that one up. Shots on target ratio, 53% of our shots are on target. That is something I'm really proud of. That's 10% more than any other team in this division. I think this is kind of the key thing here. When we create chances, generally they're on target. We're not shooting loads from range. We're biding our time, getting good opportunities. When we create chances, they're good chances. That seems to be the way that we play. We're very clinical with that. Shots on target, we're a little bit lower on that one. But again, if we could just get some more chances, we'll create more goals. And I think next year, just with better players, overall, improving all around, there's a real chance for us. Fouls against, we've actually conceded the least. We've had the least fouls on our players of any team in the league. That's interesting. I guess maybe because our players don't dribble so much. The ball is often in the air, and we don't pass the ball around so much. So with less possession, there's less chance to get fouled. I'm not too bothered about that one. Dribbles per game were fairly low, but it's also fairly average for the league. So I'm not too fussed about that. Marion Lease clearly do love a bit of a dribble, though. That's for sure. Right, defending. They only conceded 22 goals. We had the 10th worst with 61. But put it this way, if we hadn't had that dreadful run where we conceded 6 in one game and 5 in the other, that's 11 goals we gave up there. We'd probably be around about the 8th, 7th kind of spot. And Frem were pretty solid defensively. So were Marion, at least. In fact, they were very, very good defensively. So if we could just tighten up a little bit there, I'm not too bothered about us being the best defense in the league. I feel like when we go up, if we go up, which I hope will happen at some point in the save, it will be through having the best attack in the league rather than the best defense. Conceded from corners. Ready for this? 5 isn't bad. I mean, it's still one of the worst, but it's not as bad as it was last year, I don't think. I can't remember the exact stats, but I feel like it's better than it was. It's certainly improved after Christmas. I think we've maybe only conceded 1 goal from a corner after Christmas. It's not the worst in the league. Thisted and Nyköping have been dreadful from that. It's still not great, but we're only 1 away from being sort of league average. What about conceded from direct free kicks? We weren't one of them, which is always nice. Indirect free kicks. How do we do there? 7 goals conceded from free kicks. It's still the free kicks issue that's causing us problems. I think last year we conceded 18 goals from set pieces if you include corners and free kicks. That's what I remember. So this year it's 12, which means we've actually cut it by 30%. So in a sense, it is better. And I think that next year, with the way that we're playing with the free kicks and conceding less of them, we can bring this down even more. And that's probably contributed quite considerably to our less amount of goals conceded, frankly, is the fact that we've conceded less from free kicks. So yeah, from 18 down to 12, I'm happy. Next year, I want that to be under 10 for the entire season. So you conceded, Frem conceded none from there, and they only conceded 3 goals from set pieces all season. Vale conceded none from there, and none, wait, and only 3 there. So some very, very good sides that can do that kind of thing from set pieces. If we could be one of them, that could really gain us a lot. Clean sheets, we were always going to struggle with. Only 4 all season. Would like a few more of those, generally speaking, but not too fussed about that if we're winning games. Fouls made, comfortably the most, but Marion Lease were up there as well. Pretty aggressive team. Tackles won, we're in the high end of that. I don't think our ratio of tackles won is too good, though. In fact, it's the lowest in the league by miles, so that's definitely an area we need to look at. Getting better centre-backs, and I think this has definitely fallen dramatically since the losses of Nielsen and Tuvenon after Christmas. We've definitely got worse defensively as a result of that. So one of my main areas I'll be looking for in the summer when we bring these players in is, are there any good 3 or 4 star centre-backs coming through there that we can bring in? Because I will give them all contracts if I have to and completely revamp that, because Cariso's not going anywhere, Cisse isn't improving, and everyone's kind of fighting it out for that 3rd position. Tuvenon at least improved when he joined the squad. He was like a 2-star player, maybe 3, but he was 4 when he left, whereas the others just aren't improving for us at the moment. Penalties conceded. 11 penalties we conceded this year. 11! I don't know how many penalty goals were converted, but that is crazy. Just think how many... Again, I think that comes down to the fouls. If we concede less fouls next season from playing a more tighter strategy without get stuck in for most of the game, we'll concede less free kicks, therefore less goals from free kicks, and less penalties. That's 18 chances teams have had to score. They scored 7 from free kicks and have had 11 penalty chances. They haven't scored them all, but they've probably scored at least 8 of them. So that's 8 goals we could have avoided conceding. Marion Lease and Hobro didn't concede a single penalty all season, despite Marion Lease having one of the highest foul rates in the entire league. That is very, very strange. That is really weird. They conceded a lot of yellow cards, a lot of reds, but no penalties. They're just destroying people just outside the box. Average attendance. Obviously, weirdly, ours is not the lowest. 538, that seems like it's improved. We were only getting 400s a few years ago, so our attendances are definitely going up. Attendance by capacity, fairly high, actually. Frem not doing so well. Helsingor getting good crowds for the most part. We've had no sellouts. We've never had a sellout in this stadium, but don't worry, we will do one day. We've had a 669 crowd. That's probably, well, it's our highest attendance of all time, surely. I think we might have had 700 once for a cup game. Who knows? Lowest attendance for us was still 441, which is fairly solid for us. Net transfer spend, obviously, we've gained money on that one. I'm pretty certain of it. And salaries per annum. So this is the thing, right? Our salary per annum is actually mid-table, although... yeah, I mean, it is. So that's kind of interesting, actually. So we're actually finishing around about where you'd expect us to based on our salary. A little bit overperforming. Vencisal massively underperforming. And Marion Lee's massively overperforming if you count salary as a fair idea of what teams are spending. But look at that. 331k. But the team that went up was spending 5 times more on players. They've got players, I think, that are on over £1,000 a week in that team. But it does seem that that's cost them a bit on the old wages there. So let's take a look at the player stats. I don't expect us to have loads of players on here. Games won, games lost. This is not really relevant to us. Yellow cards, maybe? Anyone? Gravgard's got 5. He's the only player from us that's in the top 20. No, Nielsen, interestingly, despite only playing half a season, got a fair few of those. We're not on that one, of course. Man of the matches. Gardner did get 4 man of the match awards, and Ponzio did get 3. So it's good to see that we're getting players on this list. Any more? No, not quite. Distance covered. Gravgor is putting in the miles, that's for sure. That's his overall. Now, obviously, we won't have a left-hand side comparison because we've played 3 or 4 players in that left-hand side role. So that's not really a fair one. Distance covered per 90 minutes. Gravgor is up there. He covers the miles this season. Ponzio gets around a bit, as does Diamosa, which is very interesting, although that could just be because it's extrapolated from Diamosa not playing as much. Average rating, Ponzio didn't quite get there in the end, but he's still one of the best players in the league for that. Gardner also up there. St. Brendan, of course, doing his thing. Anyone else? Not quite, but that's not bad. 2 strikers and a creative midfielder actually having a good season for us, which proves that it can be done. We're not completely bypassing our midfield, because Ponzio's got 8 assists in the league this year, which is very, very good. Oh, apologies. I'd have a burp there. Headers won. Now, Carrizo has won a decent number of headers. Anyone else there at all? No. So we'll be having a look at Carrizo and seeing how he is important in certain areas when we get to things. Top goal scorer, Stephen Gardner with 21 goals this year. Incredible. Brendan O'Neill with 11 is pretty damn good still. So 2 players on this top scoring chart. I'm pretty pleased with that. Not the top scorer this year, unfortunately. Eric really just blew it out the water in the end. Has played more games than Gardner, but that's still not enough to sort of clarify that. I'll be interested to see who's got the best shots on target ratio, though. Average minutes per goal. Gardner's still one of the best players in the league for that, though, which is nice to see. Number of shots overall. It's no surprise to me that Babian has had the most shots in the league. Not a tiny bit surprised by that. He's Armenian. Not that that really matters. It's just interesting to point that out. The amount of shots he had against us in that game when we played them, and I think he got the winner in the end, but my God, was it close. Gardner's only had 60... Look at that. That is unbelievable. That genuinely is incredible. Eric's had 152 shots and scored 27 goals. Gardner's had 63 shots and has scored 21 goals from them. Look at the other players around him down here. 11. 16 is good for Morton Beck. But look at Gardner. This is going to be very interesting. Shots on target. Gardner's had 41 shots on target and has scored... He scores with every other shot on target. That is unbelievable. Genuinely. That is unbelievable techers. Memeing it up 2009 style. That is genuinely surprising. Shots on target ratio. Brendan O'Neill has a 70% shots on target ratio. This is what I mean. Our players aren't shooting generally from range loads at the time. They're creating gilded chances and are putting them away. Gardner, 65% for him. Is there anyone else on this list at all from us? No, but it doesn't matter. 70% of his shots are on target. If Brendan had more shots, he would be right in there. Team goals. Not really relevant to us. Penalties. Ponzio has scored 5 out of his 5 penalties taken. Mwah! That's really, really good. Which means that since we've had more penalties, I'm assuming that the other ones have been taken by when Ponzio's not played. I know Ferro's missed one for us, definitely. Ponzio needs to be on penalties if he's still here next year, which I really, really doubt, unfortunately. Most assists, Beck is up there too. St. Brendan with his 11 assists. Ponzio with 8. It's good to have a couple of players on there too. Key passes. I would expect us to have some players on this list. Ponzio's got 61 key passes. Brendan 56. Gardner 49. Gravgord 45. That's 4 players that we've got in the top key passes list. I want next year to have a player win this stat. Eric, surprising actually. Then again, he's got a lot of goals and he's got 9 assists in the league too, which is very, very impressive. Decent cross complete. Is that his cross completion ratio? Yeah, that's interesting. Chances created now. Brendan with 30 chances created by St. Brendan this year. Eric is a truly unbelievable player. My goodness. Gardner with 25. Ponzio with 22. Brendan O'Neill is the ultimate assisting player at the moment. He's only got 11 assists this year, but I feel like next year he could genuinely go for like double, like 20 maybe. You never know. It could actually happen. Pass completion, we'll have no players anywhere near this one. I think the best player on our team is Brendan O'Neill. He's got like 75%, which ain't bad. Cross completion, right, where my boy's at. That is surprisingly low. Honestly, I'm very surprised about that. Diamosa with 22. Don't know what he's doing crossing the ball. And Gravgor with 21. Although Gravgor getting 21% is very, very good compared to what he was getting last year. I'm glad we've been using him instead of Gunnarsson this year because Gravgor, 21% cross completion is very, very good for what we want. Dribbles per game. So, there you go. Brendan O'Neill on there too with a 2.2. Wow. Gavranovic is truly incredible at dribbling. He's head and shoulders above anyone else in this league. Brendan, though, is on there, which means we can definitely use that. He does like to run with the ball down the right. That's his PPM, so that would make sense. We probably will have a few offsides. Gardner, Brendan, and even Ferro, despite only playing like 13 games, has got a hell of a lot of offsides so far. But again, that could come down to his decisions. I'm not so sure about Ferro still. I'm really, really not. Team conceded. That's not relevant to us, of course. Tackles per game. Anyone on here at all? Gravgor, look at this. Michael Gravgor, despite that weird run he had, has had a bloody good season for us all round. He's appearing in a lot of these stats, both defensive and attacking one. Right, here we see. Mistakes leading to goals. Anyone on here for us? Tuvanon made 2. Ponzio made 2. Carrizo made 2. Not too bad. Overall, not too bad. Particularly as Tuvanon's gone on to pastures new in that time as well. Mistakes overall, though, we're going to have players. Gravgor's made a fair few mistakes, so has Gardner. Not too bothered about it from my strikers. It does worry me about Gravgor, but he is such an attacking player. I think that his defensive duties do sometimes seem to get neglected a tiny little bit. What about key tackles? Nobody on there at all. I guess that's coming down to our slightly worse defense for a lot of this year. Any key headers for us? Go on. Tuvanon made a lot of them. Gardner's made a lot of key headers too, which is very surprising. It seems that we are aiming a lot of headers to him. This is why I feel like if we could just get a player who isn't a target man, but is at least tall enough to have an impact in those areas, we could certainly get something there. Interceptions made. Carrizo made a lot of those, which is showing that... I'm looking at this more now as Federico Carrizo makes some mistakes in games, but he clearly does rank very, very high for a lot of these stats for us. And maybe I was a bit wrong by dropping him. Headers 1 ratio. No players on here for us, unfortunately, at all. Shots blocked. Augustin. That's... very interesting. He's certainly got out there and made quite a few blocks despite only playing 13 times for us. He's made a lot of blocks in that time. So he's clearly willing to put his body on the line for us. Goalkeeping. I mean, we're always going to struggle there. Conceding the most goals there with Gaston Garcia at 61. Clean sheets, he was always going to struggle with that one as well. Although some keepers have made less. Saves held. He's held the most. We do face a lot of shots, to be fair. But that is interesting to find that he is holding on to a lot of those. And again, Freymat having a player up there too. Right, now let's take a little look at the actual player stats themselves. Just going to have a little sip of my drink while I sort out the squads and stuff for doing so. Right, so, copy of contracts, not the one we want. I was just sorting out the contracts a little while ago. So, custom, we're going to start with goalkeeper analysis. So, filters. We want goalkeepers. Doesn't matter about anyone else, really. We'll keep... Have any of them others actually played? No, okay, so, only goalkeepers that have played this year. Well, the only goalkeeper that has played this year is Gaston Garcia. He's played every single minute of every single game for us this season. So that's something, I suppose. All of them. Total goals per 90 minutes, 1.73. Team conceded per 90 minutes. Right. So that shaves tipped. Points per game, 1.36. Conceded. Games 1. Clean sheets 4. So what we're looking at, really, is players that are like him, but have better stats in certain areas. Now, Kovacic is way worse on the reflexes. And his handling isn't as good either, but he does have better punching. He's much, much better at rushing out, which means that he could potentially be useful as that sort of sweeper keeper that we like to use. His command of area is also better. His eccentricity is a bit lower, but I'm not too bothered about that. I tell you what, right? Antonio Kovacic is definitely a worthy replacement should Gaston Garcia leave. Now, he has signed a new deal, but if a bid was to come in for him, I don't think I'd be too bothered about letting him go. I feel like Antonio Kovacic could well make a decent deputy. He's also 2 years younger. And just little things. His reflexes, though, do worry me a little bit. Garcia's made a lot of reflex saves in games. And since we face a fair number of shots, that might be something that we kind of want from our goalkeeper. Not really a lot to talk about regarding the goalkeepers because we've only got one goalkeeper that's played every single game this year. So it's hard to really make much of a comment on it. So let's quickly change again. I'll have another drink. Let's go to defenders. We're going to do the wide defenders. This one. Just turn these back on for a sec. So we're going to go to defenders. I'm going to go to We'll do centre-backs first. So, who's played for us this year? Total minutes, that's what we're interested in. Let's see the filters, if this turns anyone off. Right, no one from the under-19 squad, and only Ricky Baird, who's played 90 minutes. Not really relevant, so we'll just go with the senior squad of defenders for now. Go on to centre-back analysis right then. So, important things for us to consider here. Team conceded per 90 minutes with them on the team. I mean, look at that. Nick Locklear instantly stands out as having conceded a lot of goals with him in the team. He's not played a lot of minutes, fair enough, but he made 5 appearances, and I think he played most of those games in total. 2.4 goals per game with him in the team, whereas for everyone else, it's fairly solid. Carrizo, Augustin, pretty low. They were all kind of around about the same level. Now, obviously, without Nielsen, without Tuvenon, it's kind of hard to judge some things. Let me just set this up to auto-size all columns. Tackles per game, Locklear has made quite a few, and so has Augustin. I'm actually quite a fan of this Augustin, that he's young, he's hungry, he seems to have some good ability, so we'll sort of see if we can figure out why he's doing relatively well in our team. Tackles won ratio, Cisse with 85% won, which is very, very high. Carrizo does not win a lot of tackles. He seems to do other things in this team, which we're going to have to try and identify, because he's certainly ranking on a lot of stats, but that might just be because he's the only one of our defenders that have really played pretty much the full season for us. He's made 26 appearances from the start. Cisse's made a few, and Augustin's made a few as well. But it is hard to tell. Points per game, though. How many points per game are we gaining? So Carrizo is actually in the team when we gain the most points. Locklear the lowest. No surprises there. But those three are all relatively the same. But Carrizo, again, he might be having the lowest tackles won ratio. What is his tackling like? It's 8, which is interesting considering Augustin's is also 8. So what's Augustin got that he doesn't, that is making him stand out there? Determination is, right, okay. His determination and decisions, concentration, bravery, they're all higher, and I think that's leading to Augustin making definitely more tackles than Carrizo. He has got some gaps in his game. There's no doubt about that. Carrizo does have some issues, and I don't know. I will look at this over the summer, and if someone comes in who's better, then Carrizo might not belong for this team either. He does have decent pass completion, although really you could throw a blanket over all 4 of them in that period. Mistakes, Carrizo's made 22. Augustin's made 17 mistakes, despite having played half the number of games. So clearly there are some areas where he's just not, and it's interesting though, because maybe it's his marking being a bit lower than everyone else's there. Is there anyone who really stands out as being poor compared to Carrizo? He's better in almost every area, frankly. Apart from his marking, that's the one area where it stands to be a bit lower. Maybe his inability to mark as well. He's probably got the poorest marking of all of our defenders, actually, is what's leading him to make a decent number of mistakes. Cisse as well has made a number of mistakes, but his marking is better. I'm assuming he's poor in other areas, but he's not really that bad. That is strange. Maybe it's about the position they're playing in, as relative to the other positions in our back 4. Interesting there. Carrizo made 2 mistakes leading to goals as well, which is a surprise. It's a shame. Key tackles, though. Look at this. This is interesting, actually. The fact that Cisse has played less games but has won more key tackles, he's actually played all right for us so far. His average rating isn't the highest. Carrizo's is the highest. Locklear's is massively the lowest. In fact, Cisse's is the lowest. One thing I would say is Cisse doesn't appear to have the potential to become as good overall as, say, Carrizo or Augustin. He's played a lot for us over the past couple of seasons, and he doesn't really appear to be growing too much. So it does seem that he just doesn't seem to be improving, which is a shame. So he might get phased out slowly. Key headers, Carrizo's won the most. Cisse and Augustin won relatively similar amounts, but they played a lot less. So you'd feel like if they played more, they might have won more of them. Key passes per 90 minutes. Locklear's made a few of those, but to be fair, he's probably made like 1, which was that brilliant ball over the top that he gave for that Stephen Gardner cross to Brendan O'Neill against Vencesel. So I don't know about that. Augustin pretty low on this one. What's the passing stats like? Cisse has the best passing stats, so it makes sense that he's up here and has played a full season. But to be honest, the others have got pretty poor passing stats in comparison to him, and they're not that far behind on the old key passes, to be honest. So maybe there's not too much in that. Interceptions per 90 minutes. Look how poor Nick Locklear is on that one. Augustin and Carrizo way out in front. Or Augustin really doing well, and he's played enough games for me to consider that a definite thing. He's definitely getting into positions to make those interceptions. So that's something we can definitely look at. I'm not sure what conclusions I'm really forming here. He's also winning 85% of his headers too, which is impressive considering he has 11 heading. 14 jumping reach though. I don't know how tall he is. Can we actually see that? Have I put that on this one? No, I haven't. Let's just see how tall Augustin is. He is 6'1", so he's not amazing in that sense. Whereas Carrizo's 6'4", and yet is winning way less headers than him. What about his strength? 9 compared to 7 is... Augustin looks like a player who's got bags of potential. He blocks a lot of shots, gets a decent number of tackles per game. He makes a few mistakes, fair enough. He gets a decent number of key tackles, I suppose. Well, actually, no. Wins enough headers. Plays a decent passes. He's great with his interceptions. He wins a lot of balls in the air. He looks like a player that might well be in the starting lineup for us next year. There's a lot to like about him in the way that he's played for us so far. Locklear, obviously the lowest on that one, with Carrizo being the highest, but they're all, again, fairly close to each other on that one. So what I've kind of been able to ascertain here, he's also got a fairly professional personality, which to me suggests that he's probably going to be slightly better at maybe improving over time than Carrizo and Cisse. And bear in mind, he's also, pardon me again, I'm sorry, I'm drinking water a lot and it makes my throat go very, very poor during these sessions because this is going to be like an hour-long video. Do try talking for an hour. He's 3 years younger than them, and he's basically as good, if not a tiny bit better than them currently, with a personality that suggests he could improve greatly. So in all honesty, I think if anyone's losing their place, this is the thing, they've all got benefits to them. Cisse hasn't been as bad as I thought he was, but I do worry about his progression in the long run. Carrizo hasn't been as bad as I thought he was. I can see what he does, but there's other areas where he really does seem to struggle. So it's really hard to know if we got someone new in, which one of these I would drop. But to be honest, I'd be tempted to drop Cisse and Carrizo and actually go with Augustin as my first choice on the team. Because he's younger, he's got more room to grow. If we give him game time while he's this young, he could start to improve and could be the next Fabian Tuvenon. We also don't have to pay him silly money. So if bids come in for Cisse and Carrizo, we could get rid of them. And Augustin's on sensible money. In fact, I don't think he's even got a proper contract. So that's something I will definitely sort out. In fact, let's do this now. He's on £1 a week. Let's offer him a new contract, see what he fancies. He's not after anything specific. We can offer him a 2-year deal. We're going to get rid of all these clauses because, let's face it, you don't deserve those. And we're going to put him on £120 a week, which is what he needs. There we go. Finalised deal. Perfect. I want to sort this lad out with a deal so that he's not going to get poached from us in the summer, because I feel like he's a long-term presence at this team. And he's Spanish, so that might help us with his value and stuff like that. Right, let's I'm going to open another bottle of water because I'm already onto my second one of this video, and we're going to switch over and take a little look at the wingbacks, because that's the next role that we're going to take a look at, I've decided. So firstly, any of them that played, right, none from the B team played, and none from the C team, none from the under-19 team played. This is pretty perfect for us at the moment. In fairness, that's probably because anytime someone starts playing games for us, I will move them into the senior squad, so we don't have to worry about losing them to other games with like the under-19 squad and whatnot. So let's quickly switch the analysis table over so we can take a little look at the wingback analysis. I will make these available online. I'll put a little link to a download so you guys can download these filters. Unfortunately, if you're playing wingers or attacking midfielders or defensive midfielders, you'll have to make your own because obviously I only have them for the positions that we have in the team. So who's played the most minutes this year? It's Gravgård. Comfortably played more than anyone else. That left-hand side has been, well, Augustin we can ignore for now, because he apparently can play on this, on the wing, but that's not where we're going to be using him. So we'll ignore him for now. The other wing has been taken up mostly by Lopez and Borup and Betzer, and obviously Perez has played a few minutes over on this side with Gravgård. So, points per game. Let's see what we got. Borup, okay, but he's barely, well, he's played 1,000 minutes. Lopez, Gravgård. The lowest one is Ollie Betzer. That's noticeable. The fact that Betzer played a lot in the early stages of this season, and definitely things have improved since Daniel Lopez come in. We're winning more points in games with Daniel Lopez in the team. That's pretty much undeniable there. Team conceded per 90 minutes. Betzer, again, has the most, and Lopez has the least, along with Gravgård pretty low on that one too. Perez fairly high. That left-hand side has been an absolute problem child for me. Betzer and Borup, as you can see, not doing well in those roles. And I feel like Danny Lopez is the kind of guy that can come in and finally make that left-sided wingback role his own. He's a 3-star player as well. Look at this. Betzer's probably the best player out of all of them, right? But he just doesn't perform like he's the best player out of all of them. He's playing for the Denmark under-19s. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I moved him on in the summer. He's still only 18 years old. He's got a contract until next year. He is improving. Day after day, this guy is improving. But what is the point when he's not getting in the team, and when he does, he plays poorly? I might move Oliver Betzer on in the summer, get some money for him up front, put myself a 50% of next sale fee clause, because I think he could be good, just not for us. For whatever reason, he just does not work in the team when we play him. And I think moving him on to someone else and getting some money for him down the line might not be such a bad idea. I don't know. Transfer status. I don't want to transfer list him. I don't know. We'll have to see about that. I don't want to cause an upset by doing that, but we might look at moving Betzer on. If we can get a couple of grand for him in the summer and get some stuff down the line, it certainly might be worth thinking about. Let me know what you think about that, because I think with with Danny Lopez making that his own, there's a chance, but then it is a player that can play in our first team that's not on silly money at the moment. So maybe it is worth keeping him around, if only as a backup. But then again, we'd have Borup as a backup. And I know his contract's going to expire, but I am going to probably extend him on an amateur deal to get him off the money, but allow him to still be as a tutor. I know it's only a balanced personality, but we've got very few older players to choose from when it comes to tutoring. So I'm trying to keep people like Nigord and Borup, who at least have neutral personalities, that we can tutor some bad personalities out of younger players if we do get them, at least. We're not going to... What I want is a decent older player who's got like a resolute or a driven personality in the team. And I would keep them to their like 95 years old, and just have them tutoring my starlets every single year to get a few more with those kind of personalities. So, tackles won ratio. Perez is very, very high. 93% is very, very high. Augustin, obviously, fine. Lopez is a little on the low side. Gravgard at 71 is actually pretty solid for that kind of position. He's done all right for his defensive duties. I just think he's played so much that there was bound to be a few mistakes in there. And most of those mistakes, I think, were made in that 2-game period where he got like a 5.8 and then a 4.7 in back-to-back games. Maybe something was going on at home. Maybe he and Mrs. Gravgard were having some problems. Who knows? It's not my point to say. Borup, very, very poor on the tackles one. But it does seem to think that Perez is definitely a worthy deputy for Mikkel Gravgard. If he was to get injured or whatever, Perez is clearly very capable of jumping in there and doing a reasonable job over that period. Probably a better defender for the most part. Is same tackling, is better marking, and I mean, I think it's the marking stat that's certainly allowing him to make those tackles a little bit better, perhaps. No other area, apart from his decisions, does he really dominate over Gravgard particularly. So that certainly seems to be the area of that one. Pass completion is always going to be low. Gravgard at 64, Lopez at 63. They're fairly solid, and they're both their understudies are just in the sort of next level down. Augustin obviously lower. Doesn't matter about him. Key passes per 90 minutes. Gravgard right up there. Danny Lopez not that far behind either. Still performing as I would expect. Wow. Camilo Perez hasn't made a single one yet, but he hasn't played enough minutes for me to really be able to make a judgment call on that one. Interceptions per 90 minutes. Gravgard has made a lot more than Danny Lopez, that is for sure. A worrying amount. Carmelo Perez and Betzer, but might just because they've played less games, are making more interceptions. So, I don't know. It's not an alarmingly low amount, but it is certainly less than Mikkel Gravgard. Headers won as well is a little on the low side. I don't know if it's because Lopez is much shorter than Gravgard. He's 5'9", has 4 heading and 6 jumping reach, whereas Gravgard is 5'10", has 5 heading, and he's got much better jumping reach. And I think that's what's really doing it for him, enabling him to win 13% more headers. It's probably just because he's got that extra ability to jump. An area we do need to look at, though, because Gravgard, in fact, has been at fault quite a few times for some dodgy situations in the past this year. Headers won per 90 minutes, of course. Again, Lopez, not that many less, though, surprisingly, despite not winning as much. Games won ratio, Gravgard 39, Danny Lopez 36, Betzer 21, to give you an idea. That just shows you how much worse we were with him in the team. Not entirely his fault, of course, but not entirely not his fault either. Dribbles per game, Lopez is the best on that one. Gravgard is very low on the dribbles. So it means Gravgard is generally putting the crosses in earlier, it would seem, whereas Lopez is having a crack at people. Not that much, but he's having a better go at it down that left-hand side, which might mean he's going to get some more assists. I don't know. We might have to have a little look at that and see how many assists they've actually got each. Distance covered, Gravgard miles ahead of Lopez on that one, but I mean, he's just an absolute monster down now. Crosses completed, 21% for Gravgard, 17% for Lopez. So for my mind, we've got the best 2 wingbacks playing in their roles, but 21% for Gravgard is absolutely insane. This is what I wanted him to be doing last year. He was decent last year, but he's really stepped it up a notch this year. And if he can keep it up at that level, and Lopez can bring his up a tiny bit towards the 20 mark, we could really, really be onto something. Which is interesting, because Lopez actually has a better crossing stat than him. I don't know why that... Look at this. It's very interesting that Gravgard's got better crossing stats than him, despite having worse attributes in almost all the defensive areas. That is very, very strange, to be honest. But I can't fault him. He's been absolutely incredible. What's this one? Chances created per 90 minutes. Gravgard up there. He's created more, because he just makes more passes. His chances created so far is 12. When you compare that to Lopez is 6. And Borup's actually made more chances when he's played. But he costs us so much at the other end with his ill discipline that it just makes no sense to have him in the team. Again, the best 2 wingbacks so far by a comfortable mark. Betts are way down. Perez way down as well. Mistakes into goals. Daniel Lopez hasn't made a single one so far, which is great. 35 mistakes, which isn't great. I mean, let's see. He's played about half the number of games, so... Or has he? Yeah, about... No, but, he'd probably be a bit more on the old mistakes if he'd played more. Borat makes so many mistakes, it's just hard to keep up with him. Betts has made 25 mistakes in like 500 minutes. He would be over 100 mistakes by now. That's the main issue with Ollie Betzer. Like, best player on paper, perhaps, in certain aspects. But overall, for me, Lopez and Gravgor are the two. But Camilo Perez is definitely an option in that role. Betzer more of a backup to a player that I don't really want to ever have to drop. Personalities-wise, in terms of their improvement, balanced. Augustin's, yeah, I mean, fairly sporting, fairly ambitious. It does mean Gravgod might want to leave more, but we've not got any amazing personalities in these guys. It would be nice to have someone that's got a really good one. But frankly, I'm pretty happy with that. Gravgor is definitely my first choice on the right, Lopez on the left, Perez and Betzer, I think, are reasonable deputies. Betzer, if we got an offer, I wouldn't be saying no to it. But I'm not probably going to go out and like flog him on a market or anything like that. I just think that there's definitely something to be gained from that. And maybe if someone amazing comes in in the summer, then I might push him out the club a little bit more, just to build the squad depth a little bit, particularly if they're not on huge money. For example, say they don't have to be paid for the work permits. Right then, next stage, well, 2 to go. Let's go on to the midfielders of the central variety. Whoa, okay, so minutes per game. We'll just sort this out for now. Oops, right, okay. So, under-19 squad. That didn't add anything. Does the B team add anything? Right, it changes. Gabriel Corneliuson played 27 minutes. Not relevant. Shaban Kanoni is a Tanzanian guy. Needs a work permit. Can't really play for us. He's a realist, and I'm probably going to release him immediately because I forgot to do it when he came in. He's not that good anyway, so he'll be gone. This is great. I get to do this shit on the fly. So, Ponzio, Diamosa, Ingolfsson, and Benson. Benson's really not that relevant to it. Ingolfsson's played a fair few minutes after Christmas. He's come in and played a lot more then. Next year, I feel like Thorstensen will claim that spot in the middle if he's performed well enough on loan. Although I'm kind of hoping that we get at least one good central midfielder through these players that we're getting in the summer. Someone that I can put on a big deal, particularly as Ponzio is leaving, almost certainly. And Diamosa will probably have to revert back to playing in the deep line playmaker role. Slightly unfortunate for him because it's not really his main role. The only difference I can think about being a deep line playmaker is I actually don't know, you know. Like, it doesn't have any more defensive stats. What's the difference between that and an advanced one? So, it requires more positioning, better work rate. Also, his balance is a little bit poor. Well, let's just see what Diamosa is going to be like as a deep line playmaker. Because, oh, right, of course, yeah. On support, which is what we want. So, his long shots are poor, but then we don't score long shots anyway. Irrelevant. His passing has always been like that. So... And he's created plenty of assists in the past without having to bother too much. Technique is fine. Work rate, vision, teamwork, great. Decisions, fine. Composure isn't amazing, but his balance is fine. What's Ponzio's composure like? Is he great on the composure? He's better on the composure, I must admit. But I don't think Diamosa would perform too badly if I gave him that role. But we'll have to see. Points per game. Ponzio is, of course, the highest there. Benson, the lowest. Diamosa, Ingolfsson. There's not too much to compare, really, because we've not played that many players this year. I want to see if there's any glaring errors in this that we can really look at. Team conceded per 90 minutes. Diamosa, we definitely concede more with him in the team, that's for sure. Ingolfsson just hasn't put in the performances overall. Like, his average is 6.67 when he's played enough games to do better than that. We just haven't got someone to really take that role by the scruff of the neck just yet. But hopefully they will do. Tackles 1 ratio. Ingolfsson is winning a fair few tackles. So is Ponzio. And this is my thing. Diamosa doesn't win that many tackles. The tackling, he's got 4, whereas Ponzio is 8. And I feel like Ponzio does win the ball back for us sometimes in that midfield, as is very evident by that. Pass completion is, again, very low on Søren Diamosa. And I am starting to wonder if we might need to bring in 2 of these kind of players to fill that midfield in the summer, and maybe keep Diamosa as the kind of deputy player that can come in as and when it's needed. I don't really know. I'm a little bit confused on that one. Let's see. Key passes per 90 minutes. Ponzio, 2.36. Søren Diamosa only makes 1, basically, per 90 minutes, which is about as many as Ingolfsson. But to be fair, most of the time when Søren Diamosa has played, he played the first half of the season when we were piss poor. And in the second half, he's mostly been substituted on as a central midfielder and not a playmaker. So he's basically played in Ingolfsson's role and has got a similar kind of level of passes per game in that sense. Interceptions per 90 minutes as well. Ponzio is incredible. 3 per 90 minutes. He wins the ball back for us so much in the midfield. And I do wonder if we're going to miss him if he leaves. Because he clearly does a bit of a shift for us from a defensive standpoint as well when it comes to getting the ball back and springing us on attacks. And I do wonder if without a player like that, that kind of workhorse in the midfield, because that's what he kind of is. He's basically a workhorse that can also play incredible passes, and his assists record for the year shows that in droves. He's got 8 assists in the league, which is by far the most we've ever had from a central midfielder. Soren Demosa had the most last year with 3, to give you an idea. And Ponzio's got nearly triple that this year. And 6 goals, albeit 5 of them from the penalty spot and 1 absolute perler as well. Let's try and get him on a contract one last time, off a new contract. Doesn't believe our squad is strong enough. That's the same situation we have with Alan Franson. Nothing we can do about that one, unfortunately. If I get another player that comes through like this, I'll try to extend their contract earlier before they get too big for the boots, because that seems to be the sort of problem that we tend to have with these guys. Headers won. Again, Ponzio winning more headers than anyone else by an absolute mile. He is just a midfield monster. God, I'm going to miss him. He's been so good this year. He's been absolutely star. Like, he's been star quality. When you compare him this year to last year with his stats, played 13 games for us last year, got 1 goal, 1 assist, and no player of the matches. This year, 28 appearances, 6 goals, 8 assists, 3 player of the match awards. It doesn't even bear thinking about, really, does it? I mean, you could look at his other stats as well to sort of see where he's improved. Last year, 2.94 tackles per game. This year, slightly less. Pass completion, roughly the same overall. Dribbles per game, made way more this year. Shots on target per game, more this year. Fouls against, his average rating. Everything about him has just been better this year. There's just no two ways about it. And it's going to be such a shame to see him go. Headers 1 per 90 minutes. Nearly 5 headers a game he's winning. Is he really tall as well? 6 foot tall, 6 heading, decent jumping reach as well. He is the perfect midfielder for what we want to be doing at the moment. And it is such a shame that I feel like we're going to lose him, because he could be so good. The worst thing is that we'll end up losing him on a free, and he'll probably go back to Argentina and become like a world-class player. Probably not quite that good, but he certainly is good for what we want him to be doing. Games won, 43% with him in the team. It's pretty much undeniable. Cross-completion ratio, it's 18% for a winger. Sorry, for a central midfielder. That is bloody excellent. Diamosa's at 22 is very, very good. Ingolfsson, surprisingly, is at 50, but I don't know how many crosses he's actually put in. That could be out of 2 crosses, he completed 1, which I guess is fine. Chance creation, 22 chances created for Ponzio, which is amazing. He basically creates, on average, 1 chance per game. Well, maybe just under a chance per game. If that was any higher, this guy would be just on a new level. Assists per 90 minutes. Diamosa's isn't actually as low as you'd think compared to Ponzio when you consider what he does. You know, that means for every 5 games he plays, he gets an assist. Whereas Ponzio, it's sort of every 3 games. But he has played a lot more games. So I feel like Diamosa does still have something to offer. He has still got assists this season. He got 2 in 1 game, in fact, when he came off the bench to replace, I think, Ponzio. When he played in that role, he did actually do all right. Mistakes leading to goal 2, which is surprising. A lot of mistakes overall, really. But then, I guess Diamosa would have made roughly the same amount in that period. No amazing things there. So what my main conclusion from looking at this is that Ponzio, please stay. But if he doesn't, I think Diamosa could do a job. I want Thorstenson to come back and play instead of Ingolfsson, probably. But what I'm really relying on here is someone coming in the summer. Maybe 2 players coming in the summer. An American, a Canadian, a Spaniard, an Irishman. Someone that steps up, an Argentinian, who knows, maybe we could get the new Ponzio. Someone that steps into that role and is going to make it their own and have the same kind of effect that he did for us. And I won't be passing on. There was another central midfielder that we had that I chose to sign Ponzio instead, who probably had better stats in some ways. And I wish I'd signed them both up now, because we might have been doing even better with him. And he was more of a central midfield type of player, but he was more of a general in that role. Something we've not really seen, an absolute bruiser in there. So now, let's go to the strikers. And I think we've got a few to talk about. And I'm very interested to see how well Ferro's done on the old strikers front, because he's the bane of my life at the moment. Right, so attackers. We've got quite a few worth talking about here. B team. Right, we'll just go for minutes played here so we can sort of schedule these off. Anyone from the B team? No. Anyone from the under-19 team? Only Peter Andrews, who's played 90 minutes in 1 game. I don't know when that was. Must have been right towards the start of the season. I think it might have even been the first game of the season. So we'll get rid of that for now. And we'll go to... I'm an idiot. I just did the entire fucking analysis of our central midfielders using the wing-back analysis. Does it show us anything different that the other one didn't, really? That is my main question. I did wonder why some of these stats weren't showing up as being relevant for us. Right, okay, so chances created, anything we didn't look at, dribbles per game, headers won, key passes per 90 minutes, points per game. To be fair, shots on target, Ponzio completes a lot of shots on target, tackles. Most of that was actually kind of similar, to be fair. Nothing really was that different, but That's my bad. I'm sorry about that. Right, let's move on to the attackers. But actually, oh, for goodness sake. Yeah, George Hagan's played some games for the under-19s of Scotland. Under-20s now. Well done, you. Right, let's go to attacker analysis. Right, got it right this time. So, we've got some stuff over here, but it's mostly just stuff about it's just details about the players. Minutes played. Brendan and Gardner have played the most, but Ferro's played a decent number of minutes as well. So team conceded per 90 minutes. It's not super important, but it does show that we conceded a lot more when we had Herman Martinez playing in there than, say, when we had Perez playing in there. And Hutchinson, interestingly, with the least, although he hasn't played enough games for me to really judge that one. Martinez does not win a lot of tackles either. That is very, very low. Ferro does win a decent number of tackles. That's what I would say for him. He's playing like a defensive forward almost for us. Tackles per game, again, is fairly high up there. Brendan's done all right in that sense, as has Gardner. Shots on target per 90 minutes. Right. Ferro has the most shots on target as well out of all these players, and yet doesn't score them. It's baffling. It has to be because of his composure and concentration, along with things. That's the only thing I can think of about him, and maybe his decisions, that are limiting him, because he's getting into good opportunities. He's getting into good positions. He's having more shots per 90 minutes than Gardner is, and way more than St. Brendan. So something about him has to click for us. You've got to feel. I feel like maybe he's just been unlucky. I don't know. But I don't want to have to go for a whole season with a striker that's playing like that when you've got Gardner that's smashing them in with worse stats in virtually every area. Even his finishing stat, you know. Brendan's only got 10 finishing, and he's scored way more goals than him. Shots on target percentage, Brendan, 71, Gardner, 65, Ferro, 65. So he's getting his shots on target too. It's not like he's missing the target particularly, no more than Stephen Gardner is. He just doesn't seem to be putting the ball in the net. Shots on target per 90 minutes, again, it's higher than anyone else in the team by absolutely miles. By like 25% higher than Stephen Gardner. So he's getting in the positions, he's having the shots, he's getting them on target, but he's just not getting them in the net. Maybe it is just poor luck on his part, and maybe he'll be amazing for us next year. But if it starts off and he keeps playing like that, I will have to look at someone else, because we can't have a player that's in those positions and he's not taking full advantage of the situations. Points per game, Neil Hutchinson, of course. These three guys, admittedly, have actually gained the most points per game, but they've played a lot less games. Ferro and Brendan actually have the same. Gardner's been involved in the most. Pass completion, Ferro with the lowest, but it's all within a fairly sensible curve there. St. Brendan has the highest, probably the highest on the entire team, in fact. Hutchinson has an even higher one. So Brendan or Hutchinson could play on that right-hand side of the attack, I think, if worse comes to worse. Key passes per 90 minutes. Martinez has made a decent number of them. Gardner, Brendan, Ferro doesn't make a number of key passes. He's a bit low compared to the others. He's almost twice as poor at the old key pass game. And that might be why we've had less key passes in matches since we started playing. Because I've noticed it was up towards 20s, whereas now it's been more towards the 10s. I wonder if having Martinez in there as a kind of link man has kind of done some stuff for us in those roles. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, because Martinez, what's his sort of rating compared to Ferro? So his composure is a 7. Decisions is a 7. It's slightly better. Determination's a bit low. His off the ball is pretty poor. I don't know. It's interesting, actually, because he's not that much better in those areas than Martin Ferro. But he does score goals when he's played. So that's really, really weird. Yeah, I'm finding that one a bit of a strange one, to be perfectly honest. Key passes per game. Sorry, key passes made and overall. Brendan O'Neill, well up there. Martin Ferro has made a fair few of them, to be fair. But not as many as Martinez did in less games. So I guess there is that as a feature there. Headers 1 ratio, fairly low for all of them, but Gardner and Ferro up there at least. Brendan has only won 26% of his headers, which is pretty damn poor, and Hutchinson even less. Brendan is not exactly a tall man, I don't believe. 5'9". He's got 10 heading, but his jumping reach is piss poor. So it's fairly simple with that one. Ferro, he's only got 7 heading, but he is 6 foot tall and he's got much better jumping reach. And I assume Gardner is a similar situation. Got 8 heading, great jumping reach, and he's 5'10". So that makes sense that they'd be winning more headers in those situations. Headers 1 per 90 minutes. Again, Brendan's fairly low on that one, so we can't really be expecting him to win those balls in the air. But at least Gardner and Ferro's okay. But really, we should be aiming those balls for Gardner, if at all possible. Goals per 90 minutes. Right, well, Gardner's massively up there. Brendan's not so high. Ferro's not really got that much of a better record. Well, Brendan and Ferro are actually fairly level there, but Brendan's not really a goal scorer. He's more of an assist maker. That's kind of what I have him in the team for. Ferro is in this team for one reason and one reason only. That's to score goals. With that 17 finishing, you'd expect better. Oh dear, right. Games won with him in the team. Holmgård, Hutchinson, but again, there's less games played. Ferro's not that far off the pace, but it does make you wonder if there is something to this. They've played enough minutes to make you wonder, though. Hutchinson, maybe there is something to that. I think next year we will be seeing more of Neil Hutchinson. It's just that injury really did cost him. But if some amazing players come in the summer, then he could slip further down the pecking order, which would be a shame because he's on big money, and I really don't want to have to pay more money than that. So, what's this one? Fouls against. Who's winning the most fouls for us? Gardner by a comfortable margin. And in fact, a surprisingly low number of fouls have been won by Martin Ferro when you consider that even Martinez has won the same number of fouls in a lot less games. Although he has, yeah, a lot less minutes overall. So Ferro isn't holding the ball up too well and winning these fouls for us either. Dribbles per game, you'd expect Brendan to be massively out on top. Again, Ferro, very, very low on the number of dribbles. What's his dribbling like? Is that a poor aspect of his game? Dribbling is 7. Whereas Brendan's is 13. So it's no surprise that Brendan is dribbling the ball more. And Ferro's options, he's not great with the ball at his feet, but he's better. He is literally a poaching player. And maybe playing him as a poacher isn't such a bad idea. When he plays, we'll play him as a poacher. When someone else plays there, we'll put them as an advanced forward. Ferro maybe just in there to get goals. Get in a position, get a goal. He's not great for the build-up either because I don't think his passing stat is particularly great. Look, 4. He's one of those players where I think certain aspects of his stats have sort of blinded me to the glaring holes in his ability when you look at him as an advanced forward. Dribbling isn't amazing. First touch isn't amazing. His heading isn't amazing. He's not great for the jumping reach, although he does have a 6 foot tall, so he will win some headers. Passing is only 4. Work rate, off the ball, decisions. He's not that amazing, to be perfectly honest. And I think I jumped the gun massively when signing him. Thankfully, we've only got until December, so if he doesn't perform, then he'll be gone in the January transfer window, and we get that wage bill, get him off the wage bill and free some money up as well. Because we should have a fair amount of money to play with in the summer, because a load of players have been leaving that are on big deals. Plus, I've still got some money remaining that we can use, so it's not too bad. Distance covered per 90 minutes is covering the ground fair enough. Oh, hello there. Now, this is interesting. Brennan has the best cross completion at 17%, Gardner at 14%. Hutchinson's not completed any. Oh, my God. Ferro has completed 26% of his crosses. Now, I don't know how many crosses he's had. What is his crossing stat out of interest? 5. I don't know how many that is. That, for all we know, could be out of like 10 or something. So I'm not really sure on that. But it is worthwhile noting that maybe we should put Ferro on the left and have Gardner through the middle. That way Gardner can win those headers through the middle and play in the team guys either side of him because he's got better passing stats. Well, only slightly, but he just seems to produce more. And then have Ferro running those channels because he's got that finishing ability to get into those positions. Plus, he's got the ability to cross. Now, is he right or left-footed? He's left only as well. So having him on that left-hand side, putting crosses in, might not be such a bad idea. Maybe we can turn him into a sort of Brendan of the left-hand side to feed Gardner through the middle. That's sort of what I'm looking at for now. So Ferro on the left, Gardner through the middle, and Brendan O'Neill on the right-hand side of things, doing what he does. That might be my starting lineup for next year, unless something drastic happens, and of course, you know, we get some amazing player in that changes things. Chance created per 90 minutes, Brendan is massively up there. Ferro isn't too bad, but you can see that he does have some catching up to do with those two. Average rating, well, I mean, look at this. It's so much worse than the other players. Martinez has played better than him, in general speaking, but then, when you look at minutes per goal, the only player that's... Hang on, yeah, we want this one. Gardner's fantastic, but then it's Martinez, Holmgård, Brendan and Ferro. They're all within a relatively small period of games, and I think maybe switching those two over could just generate a few more goals for us going forward, because they're all relatively okay in that sense. I think maybe over a full season, Ferro would have got a few more goals. I think he got 4 for us in 13 appearances. We need more from him than that, but maybe just moving his role over will have an effect there. Assists, Brennan got 11, Gardner got 6. Ferro got 2 assists in that period too, which isn't too bad. Although it is the lowest assists per 90 minutes of the players in that role, so maybe that's not so good. Just looking at personalities, again, they're all balanced or unambitious, those 3. So none of the players that we've got actually playing for us regularly, apart from a couple of the centre-backs, I think, have those good personalities I want. But having a good personality and being a crap player is irrelevant. We want good player, good personality. It's hard to get both at the same time. Right. my voice is starting to go, so I think we're going to call it an end to it here. But I think we've discussed some interesting things. We've got a good goalkeeper waiting in the wings. We've got good understudies in our wing-back positions and good players in those positions currently. We know that we've got Augustin, who could be great. We definitely need to look at getting some better defenders in overall, though. Ponzio is probably going to need to be replaced, and we might need to look at getting a central midfielder or maybe 2 centre midfielders, obviously one being more of a playmaker, in the summer as well. Maybe another striker, but I feel like we could definitely do something with the strikers that we have. Maybe just by shuffling them around a little bit, moving Gardner into the middle and Ferro out onto that left-hand side might give him a slightly better chance of being successful next year. So that's kind of where I've got to. So, let's go with the word of the day is tablecloth. So if you got to this part of the episode, do be sure to drop the word tablecloth in the comments. And if there's anything you want me to include in these episodes, again, do let me know. Because I will be able to enact it for the time I do the next one of these, because it won't be for like another 2 weeks. So because you're not going to be seeing this until like Monday, but it's Tuesday when I'm recording this now. So a lot of time will pass in between. So if you have enjoyed this video, do be sure to drop a like on it to let me know that you want me to keep doing them. That kind of stuff is quite important with these videos particularly. I don't normally care really, but for this one it's kind of important. So if you have enjoyed this one and you want to see more, drop a like on the video. That'd be cool. And if you're new to the channel for whatever reason, do subscribe to the videos as well. For new every videos on, well, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays in theory, although this video is coming out on Monday, so that's blown that out of the water. And I will see you guys in the next episode for some goodies from the transfer market. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.